Finally, the representatives of Congress unanimously voted that America should separate its political and economic ties from England and become independent. The notable members of Congress, through their powerful rhetoric and speeches, managed to persuade the hesitant and doubtful representatives, those who were afraid to live independently without the protective shadow of King George III, into joining the independence seekers and securing their positive votes. The session was full of fervor and passion. The opponents shouted while the supporters spoke calmly. From these shouts and that calmness, the Declaration of Independence emerged. In England and even in America itself, there was not yet a specific name for the vast land where the people were dreaming of independence. It was still referred to only as the colonies. But the people whose representatives had shouted so much for independence could not tolerate such an insulting name for their country. Therefore, it was necessary to create a worthy name for this divided land of 13 parts, and they found no better name than the United States. Thus, the idea of American independence became a reality. The 13 eastern states of America became independent, and the country that emerged was no longer subject to anyone or any government. Its people considered themselves free and in control of their destiny, ruling their own affairs. The text of the Declaration of Independence was written by Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and was unanimously approved by all the representatives. It was decided that on the very afternoon of the day independence was declared, the text of the Declaration would be read aloud to the public. The governor's mansion was chosen as the location for this reading, and all the people were informed to be present at the appointed time. Exactly at noon, on July 4th, 1776, the hammer of the Liberty Bell, on which the words "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof" were inscribed, rang 12 times. There wasn't room to drop a needle in the square by the governor's mansion. The entire city had gathered to witness this critical moment for their land and country with their own eyes and ears. It was a truly historic moment because it marked the founding of a country that would later become so strong and powerful that it would be one of the two major poles of global politics and economics, the United States of America. The Declaration of Independence stated, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We, the representatives of the United States of America, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do." And at the conclusion of this historic declaration, the sound of the Liberty Bell, originally an English bell, arose once again. This time, however, it rang out the call for freedom and independence. As the sound of the bell rose, the bells from the towers of all the churches across the land joined in. Everywhere the melody of liberty resounded, and along with these sounds, the joyful shouts of thousands of men and women who had held their breath during the reading of the Declaration rose to the sky. The entire crowd, united and with one voice, affirmed the Declaration. After all, they were no longer English. They were Americans. When the Declaration of Independence was published, it spread like lightning. all the people of the United States, who had long been searching for a way to save themselves, clung to it, seeing it as their sole means of salvation. Even the more conservative settlers, who feared that the English might one day regain control over the 13 colonies and exact revenge, expressed their agreement with the implementation of the Declaration's provisions. They were ready to make sacrifices for the realization of those dreams, the dreams of a young and united nation, though made up of 72 sects. In England, however, the situation was different. The government officials were so enraged by the contents of the Declaration of Independence that they immediately set out to utterly destroy the independence seekers. Following the orders of King George III, who, upon the advice of his counselors, was determined to destroy the United States, battalions of English red-coated soldiers, accompanied by the stirring march music of Scottish bands, boarded ships and set out to crush a band of rebellious adventurers who had dared to rise against the increased taxes and various duties imposed by George III. The king, who had declared that he would not even tolerate hearing the word independence, was resolute, while the settlers, having declared liberty or death, were equally determined. This mutual resolve led to a series of bloody wars that would later be known in world history as the American Revolutionary War. The main leader of the American Revolutionary Forces, composed of different races and nationalities, was George Washington. He owned vast farmlands in Virginia, but fate placed him at the head of a determined and united army whose sole aim was to drive the English out. George III and the English government underestimated the task, thinking that as soon as the first contingent of British soldiers landed in American ports, the independence seekers would immediately surrender out of fear. But not only did this group fail, other contingents also failed, and each force that arrived was defeated, only to be replaced by the next. Of course, the Americans did not always emerge victorious. Sometimes, due to mistakes by their commanders, they suffered defeats. One such defeat resulted in the capture of New York, which had become, though unofficially, the center of America by the British, who set the city on fire. Initially, Philadelphia was chosen as the capital of the United States, but the problems were so numerous that selecting a capital was a lower priority than achieving formal recognition of American independence from the British. Until the British signed a peace treaty with America, the independence seekers could not rest easy. Finally, after General Cornwallis, the last British commander to arrive in America in military attire, was defeated and surrendered to General Washington, the Revolutionary War ended. Gradually, things began to settle into place. The people's problems were solved through the efforts of citizens who had selflessly offered everything they had to their congressional representatives. Weeks of debate and careful consideration went into drafting a mother law, or constitution. The best ideas were selected, the rest were modified, and a law was created that incorporated the Declaration of Independence into every part. This law, which outlined the principles of governance for future American leaders, remains in force to this day. Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, and 284 years later, in 1776, America gained its independence, thus adding a new independent country to the world. This country, with over 9.5 million square kilometers of land and, according to the latest census, a population of about 333 million, adopted an eagle with 13 wings as its national emblem. The eagle holds 13 arrows in its talons, symbolizing the original 13 American states. The flag selected for the nation featured 13 horizontal red and white stripes representing the 13 original states, with 13 stars in the upper left corner of the flag, also symbolizing these states. Today, however, the American flag no longer has 13 stars. It has 50, representing the 50 states that now make up the United States of America. Each state has its own legislature and government. Each state's laws are specific to it, but the government of all the states as a whole is represented in the U.S. Congress, where laws are made, and the head of the government is elected by the people as the leader of a political party. The first president of the United States was George Washington. The creation of the United States marked a turning point in the destiny of many nations. After World War I, which lasted from 1914 to 1918, America emerged as one of the world's leading powers. Most of the world's wealth accumulated in America, and this concentration of wealth led to America's ascent to the heights of financial, political, and military power. Many factories were established, and the enactment of special laws led to population growth and an increase in wealth. Thus, when World War II broke out, everyone knew that victory would belong to the alliance in which America was a part. World War II also ended with an American victory, and the United States became one of the most powerful nations in the world. Many countries have benefited from America's economic, military, and technological assistance. And many countries have either stood on their own feet or been created with America's help. Today, this political, military, industrial, agricultural, economic, and space supremacy of the United States continues, while England, which once owned America, has itself become a satellite of the United States.